Hey y'all, I'm Marshall Wilson. This is Live at Five with Marshall, and tonight we're going to talk about sword swinging busybodies. And what I mean by that is people who want to impose using the monopoly of force of the government, want to use the monopoly of force of government to impose their ideas on other people. And that's what I mean by sword swinging busybodies. So, government is a sword, it is a destructive force. That's all it is. And it exists for one purpose, and that is to destroy the capabilities of those who would infringe upon your rights. It's really that simple. We'll let y'all know up front that we're going to cut this kind of short, much shorter than I would like to do. I'd like to go on and on and on about this for about 5.5, 6 hours. But we're only going to have about half an hour tonight because my beautiful youngest child, Hadassah, who, she is being inducted into the National Honor Society tonight, and we're all very proud of her. But I think it's important to note with Hadassah that this is kind of amazing, not because she lacks any capability, but rather the opposite. She was required to learn English as a second language just a couple of years ago, and now is being inducted into the National Honor Society. So I'm pretty proud of this kid. Obviously, she gets that from her mama. She didn't get it from me, but I sure am proud of her, her dedication, her hard work in her studies, her humility. Because I got to tell you, from my experience, it takes a lot of humility to learn a foreign language. For me as an adult, for her as, 12, 13-year-old kid trying to learn a foreign language, fit in, make friends, requires a lot of humility because, frankly, I'm convinced the primary reason that most people don't learn foreign languages is because you kind of have to revert back to very childish sentence structure. You have to be prepared to be kind of chuckled at occasionally by people who speak the language better than you do because, you say silly things that don't make any sense, although you know what you mean. And often, your conversants will know what you're trying to say, but it just sounds funny. Just to give you an example, I was teaching a systematic theology class in the jungle town of Iquitos, Peru, to a bunch of young pastors, and I was talking about how gracious God is. So I used the word gracioso, gracious, gracioso. You can see there that it might be a cognate. Unfortunately for me, it was not a cognate. It was a false cognate. In other words, a word that sounds like a cognate but isn't really. And so for about 3 hours, I kept telling these young pastors that nuestro Dios es bien gracioso. And, our God is very gracioso, which I thought meant gracious. And after about 3.5 hours of that, maybe closer to four, one of them finally had the temerity to say, Professor, I'm not sure that I understand what you're saying here. What do you mean, nuestro Dios es bien gracioso? And I said, well, I'm a little frustrated. You guys are supposed to be pastors. How could you not know that God is gracious? And we went round and round and round about that. And of course, I'm using the word gracioso to mean gracious. And he keeps saying, but there's nowhere in the Bible that it says nuestro Dios es bien gracioso. So finally, I pulled out my dictionary and came to understand that the word gracioso doesn't mean gracious. It means funny, like a clown. And I realized that I was the one who is bien gracioso, but without meaning to be. I just was silly, like a clown. And my students were able to laugh at me, and we got past it, and we figured out how to say that God is full of grace instead of very funny. But anyway, so I understand what she's had to deal with and how frustrating it can be. And I am terribly, terribly proud of this young woman. She is a fantastic lady. And anyway, of course, this is Joe's twin sister. A lot of you guys know Josiah because he travels around the state with me. She's a neat girl. And so that's why I'm actually all dressed up today because I was called to testify in the removal hearing for the two Jefferson County commissioners, Tricia Jackson and Jennifer Krause, who have actually been arrested and charged with criminal behavior because they refused to allow the Jefferson County Commission to engage in unconstitutional, illegal, immoral, and unilateral activities in Jefferson County. And their actions have been determined to be, not by a court yet, thank God, but by the prosecutor and the chairman of the um, Jefferson County Commission. They believe that the actions of these two commissioners in refusing to take part in what they believe to be corrupt and illegal activities, they've determined that that their refusal to engage in these activities constitutes 42 counts of criminal activity, including conspiracy against the government. But today wasn't their criminal trial. It was simply a hearing to determine whether or not they should be removed from the Jefferson County Commission. I was subpoenaed by the Jefferson County prosecutor. I was never informed why I was subpoenaed. I showed up yesterday when the prosecution was making its case, and I was advised that I was released. I was no longer needed, except that the attorney for the respondents decided that maybe she would like to use me, and she put me on the stand. Thank you, Todd, for putting up that link. Well, thanks, Katie. That's very sweet of you. So the attorney for the respondents, not the person who called me to the court at all. I was subpoenaed by the prosecution, which surprised me a bit, and then determined that they didn't actually need me, that I didn't have anything to add to the prosecution, which didn't surprise me. And then the defense, not actually the defense, but the attorney for the respondents called me to the stand and was trying to ask questions that would allow me to explain the actual purpose of government and why certain laws could be laws and not actually legal laws, how they could it's actually possible to have laws that are illegal, and how refusing to engage or refusing to obey legal laws is actually the most legal thing you can do, and how your highest duty as an American citizen and as a servant of American citizens, especially an elected servant, is to refuse to engage in activities that go against the Constitution and against the Constitution, against the people. So she was asking questions that would allow me to make those points when all of a sudden one of the judges on the 3-judge panel said, "Why is this guy here?" And the attorney tried to make the point tried to explain the point that I was trying to make. Not that I'd been given the chance to actually make it. If he'd let me speak for another 2 minutes, I probably would have made the point. But he interrupted me, asked the attorney why I was there, decided that I didn't need to be there, conferred with the other 2 judges on the panel, and they said, "Kick him off the stand. We don't want him here." So I went and sat in the audience and watched the rest of the proceedings, which were tedious at best. And at the very end, we were informed that it would take weeks before they'd made a decision. So now we're on waiting mode. And I feel like I wasn't allowed to do my duty, but I tried. I showed up, wore a suit, brushed my hair, combed my hair, and actually showed up when I was told to. All right, so let's talk about sword swinging busybodies. What I mean by this, and I talked about this a little bit a while ago, is that the government is a sword. George Washington actually referred to it as a fire. He said that it is a powerful servant and a dangerous master. So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that our servant remains in our control. Our government remains. Hey, Barb, how are you? That our government remains under our control so it doesn't become our master. It's a terribly powerful servant and a terribly oppressive master. So the thing is, we've got to make sure that this power that, yeah, Ruth, I agree with you. It was terribly frustrating. It's also a little weird. It was kind of surreal. The whole thing was very surreal for me, that I was called by the prosecution, dismissed by the prosecution, and then ended up being called or was subpoenaed by the prosecution, dismissed by the prosecution, called by the defense, and then the judges decided that I didn't have anything to say that would bring any clarity to the discussion. But things are what they are, I guess. So the idea is that when we make a government, what we're really doing is we're making this machine, this organization that has a massive amount of power. And that's why we have to restrain it. We have to control it. We have to narrow its focus to the point that we don't have to worry about it owning us, that we don't have to worry about it backfiring on us. And frankly, we have failed in that. Now, our forefathers actually structured this government so that it was very narrowly focused, and it's focused only on the concept, only with the task of securing our natural rights. Okay? So, what happens when we allow that sword to get out of hand? When we allow that structure, that power to get out of hand? Well, generally, the process that this happens is you have a bunch of moralists, a bunch of people who think that they have not good ideas, not just good as in effective or fun or interesting, but good ideas as in a better way to govern, or a way to, and this is where it gets really, really bad, a way to make better men, to make us better. I don't know how many Firefly fans we've got out there, but I happen to be one. And of course, in the movie that spun off of the series, at the very end, Captain Mal, they're about to go down and deal with the planet where the Reavers come from, the really crazy bad guys who go around doing awful things. And he gives this amazing speech. And he says, they think that they can make people somehow better. And I don't want any of it. And here's the problem with the idea of men making other men better, whether it's through society, whether it's through the church, whether it's through science, whether it's through government, whether it's through education. The problem is, by God, there aren't any good men. We're all corrupt. We're all broken. We are all just beside ourselves with self-interest. And that is the problem. So when you take any body of men and you give them the power, and then you allow them the opportunity to try to make men better, what you end up with is destruction. You end up with murder and horror beyond anything you can imagine. And look, we can't point the finger at the other guys and say it's all the other guys. Okay, so sure, we can talk about the 20th century, and all those totalitarian regimes that just murdered. Best estimates that I've seen is over 220 million people were murdered by totalitarian regimes in the 20th century alone. So that's communist, that's socialist, that's fascist, that's basically anybody you want to talk about rather. And the thing is that when you allow people to decide that they know better than other people how they should live, people get murdered en masse. It turns into mass murder. And not only that, but mass incarceration. People get thrown into jail because they disagree with the people who want to tell them how to live. So why does this happen? Well, the simple fact is that all men are corrupt. We really are, every single one of us. And I include myself, of course. That's why I say we and I say us. I include myself in that. Now, the thing is, I try really hard to do what I believe is right. And I am often wrong. I have studied for years to figure out what's right and how to do it. And, I still make mistakes constantly. I have sought my higher power. I have gone to God Almighty and said, make me a better man. And you know what? I think he is. I think he is making me better. But in the process of making me better, a big part of that was showing me how not good I really am. And that it's not just that I need to be improved a little bit, or I need to, become better or be nicer or have a better idea, that I really just need to become somebody very different from who I am before I have the right to tell other people how to live. And since that's not real likely to happen anytime soon, I don't have the right to tell other people how to live. I have enough trouble. I fail at keeping myself straight. So I don't have any business trying to use the government to make other people behave. So, what is the government for? If it's not for moralists, now let's talk about the difference between moralism, and morals. Okay. So, you often hear people will say, well, you can't legislate morals. Is that a fact? Is it true? Can you not legislate morals? Well, I would have to say that it's true to a certain extent from a certain perspective and false from a certain perspective. And let's go ahead and talk about that just a little bit. Okay, so from one perspective, if you consider morals to be your ideas about how to shave your face, comb your hair, what kind of clothes you need to wear, what kind of a job you need to have, no, you have no business legislating that. You have no business using the sword of government to compel other people to ascribe to your set of morals. I happen to be an ordained Southern Baptist minister. You can just imagine, whether your imaginings are correct or not, you can imagine the sort of background that I come from and the things that I believe. As a matter of fact, well, you can see much of what I believe right here on this shelf. The thing is that part of what I believe, because I believe these things, I also believe that I am corrupt and that I have no right to compel other people to behave the way that I want them to. And yet compulsion exists in the world. And because I don't support the idea of anarchy, you'd be right in saying, well, you believe in compulsion of some sort. You believe in government. I don't believe in government. I accept government as a necessary evil. I hope that's clear. I hope that makes sense to you. I don't place any faith in government. Government is just a bunch of men telling a bunch of other men what to do. And it's only valid insofar as it upholds the moral precepts of government. Okay. So I can believe that there are specific moral patterns to human life. And I do, by the way. I do believe that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I will uphold them with my life as well as I can for the rest of my life. I don't have any right to try to compel you to behave that way. So if you have people who have a set of moral beliefs and try to impose them on other people, what do you end up with? Well, you end up with burning people at the stake. You end up with pogroms where, people of this group go out and just try to wipe out all the people of the other group. You have, mass murder. You have, it's all of the worst parts. All of the worst parts of the 20th century is what you end up with. Okay. So what is the purpose of government? Well, the purpose of government is to secure your natural rights. And how does government do that? By preventing other people from depriving you of the free exercise of your natural rights. But it also has to protect you from government that might interfere with your natural rights, that might infringe upon your natural rights. So what I'm saying is that the moral aspect of government has to be limited to the government mission, right? So the government mission is to secure the natural rights of each person. Natural rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are three categories. And there are a lot of other ideas that fit inside those categories. Just for instance, the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness means a big part of that is the right to use your private property as you will, because now that's derived from the fact that you own yourself. So you own whatever private property you create or you purchase. Okay. So the only time that compulsion is ever acceptable is to prevent compulsion or to hold someone accountable for employing compulsion. I hope that makes sense. So effectively, the only time it's right to use force to compel someone else to do something is when the thing you're compelling them to do is to stop compelling someone, right? So if someone is, holding somebody at gunpoint saying, "Give me your wallet," you have the right to use force to make them stop doing that. That's it. That's it. And we have the right to hold them accountable for that action. We have the right to use force for that. We do not have the right to use force. Thank you, Ruth. I appreciate that. I often wonder if it sounds to people like I'm just talking in circles, but I'm glad that makes sense to you. So, what we're getting at here is that since the only valid use of government compulsory force, compulsive force, is to compel people to leave you alone, effectively, that's the short way of saying it, then we don't have the right to try to make each other go to church. We don't have the right to make each other use the government to do this, to make each other behave in the ways that we want them to. Now, there are a lot of life choices that people make that I agree with utterly, some that I consider reprehensible, but it's their lives. And here's where the whole thing turns around on us. Okay, this is critical. Where the whole thing turns around on us is forced conversions. Katie, stop it. Absolutely not. We do not have the right to force conversions. So, where this all turns around on us is that if I will uphold the right of my neighbor to make choices, to invest himself, to live a life that I find utterly reprehensible, because I recognize that it's his life and he has the right to make his own decisions, not because I agree with him, not because I think it's okay, not because, any other reason other than simply it is his life given to him by God. And the right to direct that life is also given to him by God. If I will not uphold his right to make decisions that I hate, what right do I expect? What right do I have to expect others to let me make my own decisions without trying to compel me? We're talking about government here. We're not talking about society. We're not talking about the church. We're not talking about interpersonal relationships or family or any of that. We're talking solely about the government. Okay? Now, as a friend, as a trusted member of a community, as a pastor, as someone who has a relationship with another person that allows you to speak about their life and about their choices, you can do that. I mean, that's between the two of you. But the government doesn't have the right, doesn't have the authority to attempt to compel them to behave a certain way. I hope we're making sense here. I hope y'all are getting this because this is critically important. So I personally believe that, wearing Bermuda shorts and sandals with black dress socks is just a horrible life choice. And I'm not a stylista. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination. I wear jeans and tennis shoes, or jeans and t-shirts and boots. So the idea here is that no, Christopher, not yet. I'm actually talking about what I'd like to talk about, and I'll get to questions in just a minute. Bye. Thanks. So I think that's a terrible choice, but I will go to war to ensure that you can make that choice for yourself. Absolutely. And no, don't apologize, Christopher. I'm just letting you know what's up, bud. But you are right. We're getting short of time here. I have to go to my daughter's induction into the National Honor Society here pretty quickly. So the point is that there are busybodies who think they're better than other people. And because they're better than other people, they believe, according to them, they believe they're better than other people. They also believe, as a result of that belief that they're better than you, they believe they have a right to tell you how to live. Now, these people might be telling you to go to church. They might be telling you to accept the homosexual agenda. They might be telling you that you have to wear a mask. And all these are moralistic movements. They are not based on rational thought. They're not based on good governance. They are all very moralistic. And these people justify their usurpation of your authority over yourself and our authority over the government to compel us to behave the way that they want us to, because they believe that they're better than we are. And that's simply false. Simply false. And I'd like to wrap all of this up by saying that the only thing worse than a bunch of sociopaths who have usurped authority, trying to compel us to behave because they think they're better than us, is the citizens who actually accept that paradigm. I have sat in the Capitol and watched good citizens, normal, decent people who work hard and take care of their families and might make the same decisions I do, might make different decisions, not the point. But just people trying to live their lives will show up in that marble mausoleum and they'll talk to their delegate or their senator or some other person who works in that building, and they will say, "Oh, Senator, thank you so much for seeing me. Listen, I just wish that you would please consider." No, these people are your employees. And by and large, they are not good people. They are not highly moral people. And by and large, they are not extremely intelligent people. They are not better than you. At best, they are a sad cross section of the actual populace of this state. So do not approach them as if they're better than you. And when other people make claims on you based on their moralistic view of the world, tell them no. Now that means people who tell you to go to church and want to use the government to make you go. And it means people who tell you that you have to accept the gay agenda. And it means people who tell you that you have to turn your children over to the state, and people who tell you that you have to wear a mask, and people who tell you that you have to take medical treatments that haven't been tested because it's best for everybody else. Tell them no. All right. So, Christopher, let me go back and look at what you've been saying. Okay. So we're talking about cannabis again. I don't know that I have much more to say about cannabis. I don't think it's the government's business what you do to your body. I do think that if you grow cannabis and you decide to share it with the kids next door, or even with your own kids, that there comes a government. This becomes a government issue because they can't really consent to using it. But if you're an adult and you're a free citizen, it's none of the government's business. For the change in policies. No, I don't like the idea of using cannabis to raise state funds because the state has all the funds it needs. It needs to stop misusing those funds. Second thing is we don't need more money for the education system. The education system is overfunded and the money is misappropriated. It's going to administration. It's going to useless policies and procedures, and it should be going directly to the classroom and into the pockets of the teachers and the personnel who actually do the job of getting education to our kids. Let me see. Yeah, Christopher. If you guys put me in the Capitol, and I will do nothing but dismantle the system that prevents you from living your life according to the principles of liberty. Let me see here. And yeah, don't apologize for asking questions. I didn't mean to be rude. I just want to let you know that I'm trying to. I've got to get to my daughter's meeting, and I just wanted to get the ideas out real quick. I wish that we had time to talk about this more. Maybe we need to talk about it more next time. And I would love to have some interaction on it, but I do need to get out the door because Hadassah is being inducted into the National Honor Society. I'm really proud of her, and I need to be there. But anyway, I appreciate you guys showing up tonight. I'm sorry that I'm bugging out on you so soon, but I think I need to. So thank you very much. Y'all think about that. Hit me up soon with more questions about this. But the idea that people can claim to be morally superior to you and then make laws. I'm sorry, one last thing. Government speaks one language. That language is law. Law takes the form of this statement. Are you ready for this? Do this or do not do this, or I will execute you. That's the only language government speaks. And a lot of people will tell you that I'm wrong or that I'm overblowing this or something along those lines because they'll say, well, you get a speeding ticket, you don't get executed. Take it to its rational end. And if you do not obey the government, it will execute you. Okay? That's the bottom line. So what we have to do is make sure that it's only making those threats. It's only speaking that language to people who are depriving other people of the opportunity to freely exercise their rights. That is the only excuse for compulsion. All right. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for understanding that I need to hit the road, but I'm going to go see my kid. Y'all take care.